In the steamy kitchen of a prestigious university, between boiling pots and quiet chatter, an older black woman in a white apron moves silently, wiping down tables like she does every day. No one knows her name. No one even notices she's there. But when a group of professors struggles with an equation no one has solved in years, she listens, she thinks, and dares to speak, only to be silenced with a smirk. You work in the kitchen. Stay there. What they didn't know was that this woman once stood at the top of the academic world, and with just 5 lines on a whiteboard, she was about to shake the entire university to its core. Because sometimes, the smartest mind in the room is the one no one bothered to ask. Before we dive into this powerful story, take a second to subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep sharing voices that deserve to be heard. And when the story ends, we'd love to know what you think. Drop a rating from 0 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us make every story even better. Enjoy the story. The steady hum of refrigerators, the clatter of metal trays, and the smell of scrambled eggs and overcooked bacon filled the air. It was 7:14 a.m. when Miss Evelyn adjusted her white hairnet, took a deep breath, and prepared for another day of being invisible. She had worked there for nearly 10 years, washing dishes, refilling the coffee station, offering polite smiles, even when students didn't return them. Professors walked by her as if she were just another piece of the cafeteria furniture. Like the old coffee machine in the corner, always working, always ignored. But Miss Evelyn watched. She always watched. The university was one of the most prestigious on the East Coast, Ivy League, with modernist paintings on the walls and a campus that looked like a blend of a movie set and an architectural magazine. But on that otherwise ordinary morning, among cold waffles and watery coffee, Evelyn heard something that made her heartbeat change. It doesn't make sense. The algorithm fails at the 3rd cycle, even with the logarithmic compensation, said a man's voice from the far corner. It was the math department's table. They always sat there talking about formulas like other people talk about sports or politics. Did you factor in the entropic growth shift? Replied another voice, a woman's, sharp and confident. I double-checked the data last night. The problem's not technical, it's structural. Evelyn moved a little closer, pretending to tidy up some cups. Her eyes landed briefly on the page filled with equations. Those words, those terms, that language, and it wasn't foreign to her. In fact, it was part of who she was, or rather who she used to be. She paused, just for a second more, and softly whispered to herself, if the matrix is degenerate, why not just invert the vector in R4? She didn't realize one of the professors had heard her. He raised an eyebrow. Excuse me, did you say something? She froze, looked at him, then at the floor. I was just thinking out loud. Sorry. Interesting, he replied with a smirk. We've got ourselves a linear algebra expert in the kitchen now? The others chuckled. Not cruelly, but like people laugh at something absurd. Miss Evelyn gave a brief smile, lowered her head, and quietly walked away. But deep inside her, something had stirred. That afternoon the sun draped the campus in a soft golden hue. The cafeteria had thinned out, but the math professors still lingered, now with laptops open, books stacked high, and voices growing sharper. Miss Evelyn was wiping down a tray someone had left behind, but her ears stayed alert. 3 days of work and we're nowhere, said the gray-bearded professor. This equation has gone through Princeton, Berkeley, MIT, and still no consistent solution. What now, give up? Just another pretty formula destined for the trash heap of theory, muttered another, removing his glasses in frustration. Evelyn froze mid-wipe. Her eyes caught a glimpse of the notebook one of them was scribbling in. She knew that structure, that logic, that rhythm. Without thinking, she spoke. Excuse me for interrupting, but have you tried flipping the second-order limit parameters? You might be assuming an error that doesn't exist. Dead silence. 4 pairs of eyes turned to her. One of the younger professors, arrogant with a university ID clipped to his blazer pocket, stared at her like she'd just spoken out of place at a royal banquet. I'm sorry, what did you just say? The parameters, she repeated, a little more timid now. The mistake might be in the entry vector assumption. If you reframe the limit cycle, a beat, then a scoff. Well, he said, crossing his arms, Looks like we've got a new hire in the math department. Do you solve equations between mopping shifts? A few polite laughs followed. Not loud, but sharp enough to cut through. Evelyn's smile barely held. Sorry, sir. She turned and walked back to the counter. But this time, she didn't just walk away. She clenched the dish towel in her hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. That wasn't just embarrassment. That was a wounded pride finally waking up. The old shower in her apartment made more noise than water. Pipes groaned behind the faded bathroom walls as Miss Evelyn sat in her small kitchen, apron still folded on her lap. The overhead light flickered once, then steadied. She sat at a modest wooden table with one thing in front of her, a weathered spiral-bound notebook. On the cover, a peeling sticker still read, MIT Class of '84. Slowly, she opened it, like reopening a part of herself. The pages were full of handwritten formulas, clean and precise. Diagrams, the kind of math you don't just learn, the kind that lives in you. Back then, this was her language. It wasn't just about solving problems. It was about feeling them, hearing the rhythm of a broken pattern, and knowing exactly how to fix it. Now all of it sat silently on this old paper, waiting. She closed her eyes. The last time she touched that notebook, she'd been at a hospital, seated beside her mother, who was asleep in a wheelchair. Evelyn had tried solving equations to escape the sound of the heart monitor. Her mother had Alzheimer's. Rapid decline. Evelyn never finished her PhD, never went back to MIT. She moved home to take care of her. Got a job. Any job. First at a grocery store, then a public school. Eventually, the university kitchen. That line, "You work in the kitchen, stay there," kept echoing in her mind. But this time, Evelyn didn't cry. She turned to the last page of the notebook, and she started to write. Not with anger, not with desperation, but with clarity, with love, with the same brilliance that once earned her standing ovations in packed lecture halls. She remembered that equation. Not exactly, but close enough. She'd seen it before, in the shadows of another problem. One line, then another. Her hand steadied, her heart focused. And in that forgotten apartment kitchen, Evelyn smiled softly to herself. There it is, she whispered. It was always there. The campus was still asleep when Evelyn stepped outside. The sky was navy blue, the first light just brushing the treetops. She walked slowly across the empty quad. No one saw her. She wasn't carrying cleaning supplies, just her notebook. She entered the math building through the side door. The hall was silent, the kind of silence that feels sacred. Room 2C. She knew it would be empty. There was a clean whiteboard at the front, markers on the ledge. She opened the notebook, took out the blue marker, and stared at the board for a moment before raising her hand. No hesitation. Line 1, framework. Line 2, variable shift. Line 3, vector inversion. Line 4, entropy correction. Line 5, solution. 5 lines. No extra words, no ego, just elegance. When she finished, Evelyn looked at the board, not with pride but peace. There was nothing else to say. She capped the marker, tucked the notebook under her arm, and quietly left the room. Outside, the sun was just beginning to rise over the tower clock, and no one knew that a woman they never saw had just solved what the best minds couldn't. Professor Jonathan Harris's footsteps echoed down the hallway as he pushed open the door to room 2C, coffee in hand, expecting another dead-end morning. But what he saw made him freeze. There, on the board, were 5 lines of math. Elegant, precise, impossible. He blinked, stepped closer. His coffee cup tilted in his hand as he whispered, "No way." Within minutes, he was on the phone. Then came Dr. Kim, then Dr. Morales, then 2 teaching assistants. Soon, 6 people stood shoulder to shoulder staring at the board, whispering and arguing. This isn't a guess. This is brilliant. But none of us wrote this. Who the hell did? This could be publishable. Someone took a photo and posted it online. The Newton-Hayes equation solved, and nobody knows by who. The tweet went viral in minutes. Speculations erupted. Was it a visiting scholar? An AI? A prank? Back on campus, the pressure was mounting. Who had been inside room 2C that morning? They pulled the hallway security footage, fast-forwarded to early dawn. There, walking calmly into the building, was a small woman in a white uniform, a hairnet, a notebook in her arms. Miss Evelyn. Silence fell across the department office. "You're kidding," said Harris. That's the cafeteria worker," whispered Morales. "This can't be real." But there it was, clear as day. The woman they passed every morning, the one who poured their coffee and wiped their tables, had just outsmarted all of them. By the next morning, her name wasn't just a whisper anymore. It was a question that buzzed through every hallway, every chat group, every email thread on campus. "Who is Miss Evelyn?" Students started slipping notes onto the cafeteria counter. "Are you the one who solved it? Teach us. Is it true?" She kept her head down, did her job. But now, the stares followed her everywhere, respectful, curious, a little guilty. Professor Harris couldn't let it go. He dug through old academic archives, searching for Evelyn Booker. And there it was. Evelyn Louise Booker, MIT, class of 1984. Graduated with highest honors, young math prodigy, featured in journals, invited to speak at global conferences. Then, gone. After 1987, nothing. She had vanished from the academic world like a ghost. Down in the cafeteria, a group of black students gathered around a phone. "That's her," one of them said, pointing to a decades-old magazine cover. "She was a genius, and they made her disappear. Or maybe she disappeared herself. But why? The university had to know. Dr. Morales requested a private meeting. Evelyn refused it. Then again. On the third try, she finally agreed, under one condition: no cameras, no press, no questions about the equation, just listen. They agreed. What she told them would change everything. The office was small, quiet, smelled faintly of old coffee and fresh paint. Evelyn sat across from Professors Harris, Morales, and Kim. Her spiral notebook rested on the table like a sealed memory. She didn't flinch, didn't fidget. She just looked at them, calmly. "You want to know who I am?" she said, her voice even. "So I'll tell you. But don't expect some dramatic tragedy. Sometimes, pain doesn't scream. It just waits." The room stayed silent. "My name is Evelyn Louise Booker. I graduated from MIT in 1984, top of my class. I was published by 19, invited to conferences, published by 19, invited to conferences, called The Future of Mathematical Theory." She paused. "That same year, my mother was diagnosed with advanced Alzheimer's, a shift in the air. My father had already passed. I was the only one left. I had a choice to make, formulas or family, and in my world, family wins." Professor Morales looked down, her lips tight. "The university tried to keep me, offered grants, assistance. But Alzheimer's doesn't wait for convenience. It eats time. It erases everything." Her voice cracked, just slightly. "I cared for my mother for 7 years, watched her forget my name, my face. Eventually, she forgot how to speak, and I stayed." Another long silence. "When she passed, I didn't go back. The academic world had moved on. My spot was gone. My name, erased." She looked at them directly now, strong and clear. "I didn't leave math. Math never left me. I just had to walk away. For love." Professor Kim swallowed hard. Dr. Morales was visibly shaken. Even Harris had no words. And in that quiet little office, the academic elite finally saw Evelyn, not as a worker or a mystery, but as a woman who had given everything for something greater than glory. The next morning, she stepped into the cafeteria at 7:03 a.m., like always. But something was different. The room was silent. Students stood, staff stood, professors stood. And then, a wave of applause. Slow at first, then strong. Not polite, not obligatory. Real. Evelyn stopped in her tracks. All those eyes, once indifferent, now filled with awe, with regret, with gratitude. A young black woman with long braids walked up and said softly, Miss Evelyn, you don't have to serve anyone today. We're here to serve you. Thank you. Evelyn smiled, a small, tearful smile. Later that afternoon, the university president gave a public announcement. A new scholarship would be created in Evelyn's honor, the Evelyn Booker Fellowship for Hidden Excellence. And even more shocking, Evelyn was invited to give a guest lecture. She declined at first. On the third request, she said yes, and under one condition. I won't talk about formulas. You've got plenty of people for that. I'll talk about what no one teaches, how to listen to people you've overlooked. The university's main auditorium was packed. Students filled the seats. Faculty stood along the walls. Even janitors and cafeteria workers were there, some sitting in those velvet chairs for the very first time. The lights dimmed, and Evelyn walked onto the stage, slowly, gracefully. No spotlight, no music, just a woman in a dark blue dress holding an old spiral notebook to her chest. She stepped up to the podium, and for a moment, she simply looked at them. Good afternoon, she began. My name is Evelyn Louise Booker. I've served coffee to many of you, cleaned your tables, watched you laugh, and ignore me. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but her tone wasn't bitter. It was truthful, calm, focused. For a long time, I thought my story was over. That math was something I had left behind, but the truth is, it never left me. It lives right here. She placed her hand over her heart. When you laughed at me, when you told me to stay in the kitchen, it wasn't the first time. And it won't be the last time someone underestimates a black woman. That line struck like lightning. But again, no anger, just clarity. What you don't seem to understand is, brilliance doesn't wear a uniform. It doesn't come with a title. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's the one person you never thought to ask. She opened the notebook and turned to the last page. These 5 lines you saw, they're not about numbers. They're about respect. They're what happens when someone who's been ignored finally speaks. Then she closed it gently. I'm not here to be a symbol or a token. I'm here to remind you that knowledge without humility is just ego. A long pause. And then her final words. You see me now, but how many Evelyns do you still walk past every day? The entire room stood. No one told them to. No one had to. Thunderous applause. Some cried. Others bowed their heads. And in that moment, the university didn't just hear her. They felt her. The cafeteria looked different that morning. The walls had been painted. New plants placed in the corners. Framed photos of staff and students hung beside academic awards. And in the center of it all, a portrait of a young Evelyn holding her MIT medal. Below it, in gold lettering, knowledge is knowing, wisdom is listening. Evelyn L. Booker. She moved through the space with quiet dignity, not rushing, not blending in. Her name tag now read, Visiting Professor, Advanced Mathematics. But she still wore the white kitchen shirt, by choice. It's comfortable, she told people, and it reminds me where I come from. At the coffee station, a nervous freshman approached her. A young black woman, glasses, tight curls, holding a notebook. Miss Evelyn, she said, voice shaking. I watched your speech. I wrote something, a theory, but I'm not sure if it makes sense. Evelyn smiled and opened the notebook slowly. Equations, scribbles, ideas in progress. She nodded, then tapped the top of the page, where it said, Page 1. You see this right here? Evelyn said. This is the most important number. 1? Yes, the first step. The first time you dared to write. The rest comes later. The girl exhaled, visibly relieved. Evelyn closed the notebook gently. Sometimes, she said, you just have to wipe the table clean and to see the problem from a new angle. They both smiled, and life, quietly, beautifully, moved forward. If you believe in stories that inspire, challenge, and give voice to those who are often unheard, hit that subscribe button below. More powerful journeys are coming, and we'd love to have you with us.